The SV.League Final started as the perfect storyline for the Sunbirds. Favorites status, winning Game 1, Dmitry Muserskiy's last tournament, and the feeling that another gold was already within arm's reach. But right at the moment when everything was supposed to end beautifully, the series suddenly broke. The Bluteon turned the final around, took the title, Nishida got MVP, and the Sunbirds went from a team that was supposed to dominate into a team that was read way too easily. And this is where the most interesting part begins. Was it a collapse by the favorite, Brizard's genius, or just another final where the Japanese league once again chose the most media-friendly hero? Traditionally, since I release videos like this just a few days after the season ends, there's no point being afraid of spoilers. The Bluteon were stronger over 3 matches and won their 8th championship. And before I get into a more detailed breakdown of what happened, let me grumble a little. I am 35 after all, basically an elderly man already. I'm still convinced the playoffs should not be held in this format. You play an endless regular season only to squeeze the most important part into 3 weekends. Not only are the lower-seeded teams completely denied the chance to play at home and treat their local fans, who supported them throughout this packed season, but there's also a chance teams may have to play 3 days in a row, like in the final, which definitely doesn't help the players physically and in the end affects the quality of volleyball, so something absolutely has to change to make the spectacle feel more complete. Alright, I've done my grumbling, now we can move on to the final. The Sunbirds came into this final as favorites and very few people doubted that this red machine would take yet another championship. They picked up great momentum towards the end of the regular season, and they got through the semi-final against the Wolf Dogs without really having to push too hard. The Bluteon for their part learned their lessons after last year's semi-final failure and confidently dealt with the stings, aiming to show their maximum level in a battle against a very strong opponent. And Game 1 seemed to confirm all the predictions. The teams produced a really bright first set. Tons of beautiful rallies, all the stuff we love Japanese volleyball for. The Bluteon even managed to take the second set, but after that the reigning champions were more stable, and even without playing his brightest match, Dmitry Muserskiy became the top scorer with 23 points. For the Blues, Miguel Lopez was basically the only one responsible for productive offense, scoring 21 points in 4 sets. The first set of Game 2 already seemed to confirm it. That was it, the Sunbirds were becoming champions today. A confident demolition of the opponent, and only 2 successful sets were left until the title. And things were going pretty well in the second set too, when by the middle of it the Reds had a 4-point lead, earned on Ran Takahashi's serves. But the Birds couldn't hold on to the advantage and allowed the opponent to tie the score. Yes, they took the third set, but that ended up being their last one in the entire series. The Bluteon clawed out Game 2 in a tie break, then swept the Sunbirds 3-0 and in the deciding match and won themselves the championship title. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Thomas Sammelvuo. After he was kicked out of Zenit, he proved that he is a coach of the highest level, which he confirmed with a pile of medals, a Polish Cup and Super Cup win, a Champions League title, and now he has added an SV.League title to that list as well. The Finn is clearly not a coach with a harsh personality and a tyrannical approach, so for him, this positive atmosphere of the Japanese championship, in my opinion, gives him the perfect place to work. And from the standpoint of building the game, when rewatching this final, it was clear that structurally the Bluteon looked much stronger. Even something as simple as bringing Kai in instead of Tomita changed a lot in this final. Yes, reception got a little worse, but they could calmly use the size advantage when Sekita was in the front row. As for Leka, I don't know what's going on with Allen, but this season he completely disappeared from the rotation. In my opinion, if he was healthy, he definitely needed to be brought onto the court from time to time, at least to try to change the pattern of the game, because everything the Sunbirds were doing was easy for the opponent to read, and they had to rely only on the individual quality of their attackers, which was also limited by certain things I wanted to talk about. As you probably guessed, we're going to talk about setters. I'm already getting ready for the comment section attack, but I still want to criticize Masahiro Sekita. I broke down his connection with the hitters in a separate video after the preseason tournament against Perugia, pointing out the factors that prevent the Sunbirds offense from fully opening up. And you know what hurts the most? Almost nothing changed. Of course, there were small improvements in the connections, but it was all catastrophically far from ideal. First, I'll defend the Japanese setter a little. I agree that switching from shorter Japanese attackers to the huge Muserskiy is very difficult. It took Masakioya several years to bring that whole structure to automatic level so that last season we could see dominant volleyball from the Russian. And then there was the added complication of Kliuka, who also somehow needed to get the ball all the way to zone 4. And maybe this shows that Sekita is a brilliant setter in the world of Japanese volleyball, but it's unlikely he would be able to establish himself in some top European team. And his stint in Poland, you could say, showed that. That's why it will be very interesting to watch Takahashi and Ogawa in Lublin. I have no doubts at all about Tomohiro, but I'll be watching Ren very closely. He showed himself pretty well in Italy and he has potential in Plus Liga too, or rather the PGE League because it's changing its title sponsor. But that's not what we're talking about right now. So if we put all the details aside, the bottom line is that the connection with tall hitters did not really improve much over the season. And to be fair, Dmitry Muserskiy didn't deliver that super level he had made us used to either, because even without perfect sets, he used to be able to do incredible things. And here I'll come back to the playoff format and the potential 3 matches in a row. The deeper the series went, the harder it became for Sekita to push the ball all the way to zone 4, which also made life harder for his own attackers. I'll put the topic of the Japanese setter aside for a while and switch to Egor Kliuka. I decided to rewatch the review I made about the Russian outside hitter 6 years ago. And while he has improved significantly in reception and defense, especially in Japan, absolutely nothing has changed in attack. Most often he attacks only cross-court, in the natural hitting direction, and more often just tries to find a comfortable contact height. Stable and regular line shots still haven't appeared. There are still a lot of tips and roll shots on uncomfortable sets. In other words, you rarely see him adjust to the set and come up with something unusual. Yes, his physical tools allow him to work confidently against the block in Japan, but then we come back to Sekita, with whom the connection was not the most effective. And you would think Ran Takahashi should shine with Masahiro, but no, not here either. Last season, Masakioya put the pipe attack on a conveyor belt, and that was one of the Sunbirds' signature features, and it was specifically through back row attacks that Takahashi generated insane offensive efficiency numbers. Now the pipes are played rarely, and even when they are played, the opponent reads them. And if they don't read them, the quality and timing are not always there. Honestly, you can't find many truly beautiful pipe attacks from the entire playoff run. And if we talk about front row offense, Sekita constantly sat very close to the net, which constantly created problems for an outside hitter who isn't the tallest and doesn't have some kind of super jump either. Yes, sometimes it worked against a single block, but the problem is that a single block was a luxury for the Sunbirds attackers. And there were reasons for that. If you look at how both teams positioned their block, the Sunbirds blockers played from the middle and shifted to the pins, trying to catch the opponent's middle attacks and help against the pipe first, and only then play against their own direct attacker. The Bluteon meanwhile focused more on the pins, because as I said earlier, the pipes were played rarely, and Sekita's connection with his middles looked very weak, and even against a single block, they struggled massively, which is why the overall attacking efficiency of the middles was around 50%, which is a very low number for that position, without heavy attention from the block. And here Antoine Brizard was 100% the X-factor, and this is exactly where you can compare what a great setter looks like and what an elite level setter looks like. Yes, he had some massive serving problems. Over 3 matches, on 37 attempts, he produced only 1 ace with 17 errors. But in terms of running the offense, he was magnificent. At times, it even felt like he was trying to put psychological pressure on Sekita. If the Japanese setter played a pipe and they didn't score it, Brizard could answer with his own pipe in the very same rally. Even if Sekita set with one hand, Brizard could answer with a one-handed set too. Even through the pipe attacks alone, you could see the massive difference in how beautiful that combination looked for the Bluteon. The setting errors were minimal, and I didn't mention the blocking schemes for nothing. Muserskiy is an excellent blocker who reads the game beautifully, and even attackers like Nimir and Lopez had huge problems playing against him. But Brizard set such a crazy tempo that he allowed the Cuban outside hitter to simply beat the Russian giant to the ball, which kept his attacking efficiency at an extremely high level. And as soon as he noticed the blockers taking their attention away from the middle of the net, he immediately brought in the pipe and his middles into the offense. And sometimes, despite his great variety, he made simple and logical decisions when Kai or Lopez were matched up against Sekita or Nishida against Takahashi. No need to force your attackers to suffer against a tall block. So after rewatching the final matches, I would definitely have given the MVP to the French setter. He was truly brilliant. Maybe it was because of such a dazzling performance that so many questions appeared for the Sunbirds setter. The contrast was just too strong. But they gave the MVP to Yuji Nishida, and honestly I don't even see the point in getting outraged anymore, considering that the league will obviously prioritize its own Japanese players, especially ones with huge media appeal. But you know, unlike last season, this actually looks pretty logical. There won't be a video about a fake MVP or anything like that. Yes, Brizard was brilliant. Yes, Lopez was super efficient in attack, but Nishida was good too. He had a strong series, especially from the service line, and Game 3 was especially bright, which added even more points to his case in the final impression. So in my ranking, he would have been the third nominee, but not far behind. And remembering the specifics of how these awards are chosen, I'm not even going to speak negatively about this decision. A perfectly reasonable choice. I won't talk too much about Lopez. Within the Japanese league, he is an insane attacker, and for more than 1 year now he has been leading the efficiency rankings. But when I was commentating Game 1 together with Kirill Klets, who played for the Arrows this year, I shared the thought that Lopez's efficiency against Muserskiy dropped heavily last year, to which he made a very important correction. Back then he simply didn't have Brizard, and this final clearly confirmed it. I'm waiting for Miguel with the national team. There the setter is simpler and the block on average will be higher. We'll see whether there's the same kind of collapse as last year. I've basically already said everything about Takahashi. Things didn't really click for him with Sekita. With his physical tools he can't really battle at the net, and executing technical shots when you're that close to the block is extremely difficult. He is still an elite passer and a fantastic defender, nothing new there, he keeps his level. The only thing I'll note is that in the final he finally started showing aggression from the service line again, the kind he had before his shoulder injury 2 or 3 years ago. After that he often just served in one direction, simply changing the length of the serve without adding aggression to it. And if that aggression starts appearing consistently again, it will definitely benefit him, because before he was a very dangerous and versatile server, and in Poland that kind of service will definitely come in handy. And a small piece about Masato Kai, who became a super sub for Tuomas Sammelvuo. The Japanese outside hitter, as I said earlier, used his size very well, without trying to generate highlights. A strategic machine that delivered the needed result. I hope he gets more playing time next season. After the end of the third match, there were several bright emotional moments. Ran Takahashi's tears with the understanding that his stage of his career in Japan had come to an end. Yuji Nishida's tears of happiness after receiving the MVP. And of course the celebration of Dmitry Muserskiy, who, let me remind you, has ended his playing career. And even though there was no perfect full stop in the form of gold and MVP, he won 12 major medals with the Sunbirds, 5 of them gold, as well as a huge number of individual awards, which were now joined by regular season MVP, Best Opposite and the Fair Play Award. You can watch the biography of one of the most dominant players in the history of this sport, and in 2 positions at once, on the channel. That's in case for some reason you are not familiar with it. And also make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts about the past season. What made it memorable for you? Did you enjoy the playoffs? And should the format be changed? I'll be extremely interested to hear your opinion. And as always, this was Nick with you. Love what you do and you will definitely succeed. See you soon. Bye.